you think I'm not going to finish, but we still have a few more. Again, if the idea of the number of people employed, you had people working in the warehouses, you had people working in the still house. This is at New Hope. This is the E.L. Miles and Company. And Mr. Miles had been making whiskey in New Hope since the 1840s, 50s. His family had settled there, and Mr. Miles, Ed L. Miles, had gone to school at St. Joseph College here in Bardstown, and he ended up coming back to Kentucky, and right after the Civil War, he built this distillery. And it was a large distillery. Very, like I mentioned earlier, brick warehouses are not normally found around, but all of these were brick. Here's your brick still house. This is the road you would have come in, which you still come in today, off of the road to Loretta. You come right in, you turn here. Here's your railroad, cattle pens, houses. New Hope was a very progressive little village then. He gave money toward the building of the church at St. Vincent de Paul at New Hope. This is the right here in this picture. If you could see, you see these little windows up here. Well, I think, from the information I've gotten from here, that this picture is inside this building. Fermenting tubs, electric lights. Up here you can see the windows. And the reason I say that, when you read the map, this is not 1886. Let's go to the 1894 information. It says that night watchman when running, no clock. The lights are incandescent electric, which is what you would call that light bulb, incandescent electric. There's no other distillery that I can find here that had lights that were electric lights in the production. So that's how we determined that that picture was made at that point. Cold Spring, another one in Gethsemane, Kentucky. We're kind of going back down the road. It was later called Yellowstone Distillery. If you look at the picture here, and you look at the picture here, it's the same distillery, two different names. It was built by J.B. Dant, son of J.W. Dant after the Civil War. This is 86. This is 1894. And they've more names and things. They had kerosene lanterns again. You pretty much, that's all they would have in this. This is right 700 feet down the track to the next one, very close. There's two of them right there along the way. This is an advertising mirror, Old Trump, Nelson County Whiskey, Gethsemane. Now, this was MC Beam, the same Beam family we talked about before. And here's your registered distillery number, 405, Gethsemane. Head and Beam. These ladies were at the Yellowstone Distillery Bottling House in New Hope about 1914. And here's the Head and Beam, as I mentioned, 700 feet down from the J.B. Dant's. So Dant would be up here, and then here would be this one down the railroad track. Cattle sheds, distillery, bonded warehouse, closed lamps. Now, we only have a couple more to go. We're going outside of Nelson County to LaRue County. If you've ever been across the river going to Hodgensville, you go through Atherton Distillery, what's left of Atherton Distillery. It was a big operation, very big operation. They actually had two distilleries there, Atherton and Windsor, I think it is, the other one. Here's our wholesale prices again. Coon Hollow whiskey in the fall of '91 was 57.5 cents a gallon. Looks like that must have been pretty. And J.W. Dant in the spring of '91, it was $1.80. Well, that's really good. That's 4-year-old whiskey. He must have had a really good reputation, or it was really good whiskey. This is both distilleries. They are very close to each other. This is Knob Creek you find right here. This one is Mayfield and Windsor is what they call the two of them. But we kind of lumped together because Atherton family. Here's the Mayfield Company. And here's the and these are 1886 and 1908. Haven't grown a whole lot, so they were really working right along here in 86. And then this is the Windsor right here in 86 and 1908. Mr. Atherton was very influential in Louisville and in the whiskey industry, and he was one of those that formed one of the people who helped form the company that bought out a lot of the small distilleries. You're going to Bullitt County. Remember, Bullitt County's on the railroad, on the Bardstown branch of the railroad track. Murphy Barber and Company was at Claremont. And you know today what's at Claremont is Jim Beam. And Jim Beam is at Claremont because after Prohibition, after repeal, Jim and Jeremiah Beam, his son, reincorporated and rebuilt this distillery site as Jim Beam number 230. And that was the original distillery number of the plant in Nelson County. They already owned land there for a quarry, so they had access to water and all, and of course they had the expertise for making whiskey. And they were making Old Tub in Nelson County in the 1890s, and in the 1930s they're starting to make Old Tub and the 5 Beams and all over in Bullitt County. Here's your railroad track. There's a dwelling, there's a cooper shop, warehouses, distillery. 1886, this is a Chappies distillery. 266. Again, railroad track right through it. Pretty good size operation. Then Barber and Farrell used to be R.B. Hayden and Company. This was really a well-known Old Granddad. If you've ever seen whiskey labels with Old Granddad, that's where it all came from. And this is at Hobbs, Kentucky. Again, along the railroad, just a stop along the way between here and Shepherdsville. It's 6 miles south of Shepherdsville. Mashing Warehouse. Greenbrier Whiskey. Today in Nelson County, we have 5 operating distilleries. Many of the historic brands are still being used by these distillers, though the original plant has long ceased to operate. We produce millions of gallons of bourbon whiskey from the same raw materials that the old distillers used. We use modern technology to move, empty, and fill bottles with bourbon. We advertise and sell this product all over the world. Things have changed in bourbon making and marketing, but the Kentucky weather, water, and the expertise is still as important today as it was 150 years ago when the Yankees came to visit and we offered them a drink. The spirit of Southern hospitality, bourbon, is still savored in Nelson County, Kentucky, and offered to the world. My last picture to show you is one that I think is very unique, and it's a modern picture. It's a historic picture, though. It's kind of hard to see, but if you'll let me point out to you, this is an aerial view. Aerial view over Willett Distilling. This bottom distillery here is the Willett Distilling up on the hill on the Loretta Road. This is Heaven Hill and their warehouses. And up here at the top, you can just see the 2 smokestacks and the warehouses of what we would call Tom Moore or Barton Distillery when this was taken. This is the only photo I've ever seen that had 3 distilleries in one view. That just shows how involved we are in offering our hospitality to the world. If you're interested in getting one of these books, if you'll contact me at 502-507-0808. The softcover sells for $25. The hardcover sell for $40. I would be glad to sell you what I have. Like I said, I'm running lower and lower, but it makes a nice Christmas gift or a birthday gift, and you can be an expert on the history of distilling in Nelson County before Prohibition if you study this little account. Thank you for listening to me. If you get a chance to come to Wickland during the Bourbon Festival, give us a call. And if you haven't visited the Bourbon Festival in Bardstown, Kentucky, you want to just come and walk around. Nobody says you have to take a drink. The hospitality we offer sometimes is pretty dry. We just smile a lot and tell you stories and let you listen to music and enjoy the camaraderie we have when all the bourbon industry come home for a big reunion.